All right, folks, here at DonBest.com, Brian Blessing with Bruce Marshall and Kenny White gearing up for New Orleans at Carolina. This will be an interesting one. 2.5, Saints favored on the road. Total on the game, we'll call the consensus 51.5. Kenny, let me just start with New Orleans specifically and the reaction in relation to the number based on what happened to them last week against Washington. What would you have made this game last week before the games were played?
I was looking at 3.5, maybe 4, and there's a lot of concern. You're right. At the beginning of the year, before a game was played, there was a lot of concern. Without Peyton on the sidelines for the Saints, what would happen? Several defensive players suspended, not in the lineup, Vilma being the biggest one. There's a lot of concern in New Orleans, and after that loss, there's even more.
Remember, this team also, not only are they without Sean Payton, and I think that could be a big concern here. His game planning and play calling is excellent. They might miss that. Also, new defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo comes in this year. Different approach than Greg Williams. He's not that drill sergeant type. He's very reserved, and it looked like they had a little trouble adjusting to the new Spagnuolo schemes last week against the Skins.
Well, let's just focus on the defense. We know the Saints offense is going to get theirs. What did you see last week, Kenny, that maybe surprised you a little bit, and how's that translated into ratings?
On the defensive side of the football, they just were not prepared, and I think Bruce maybe hit it on the head. It's Spagnuolo's defense. The players didn't, the change in philosophies did not pick up on it. They were guessing all day against RG3. That's going to be a big problem. And I thought this defense was okay, and I went back to look at my ratings. 28th in the NFL I have them rated. This is a bad defense. They're going to give up a lot of points this year.
Let's go to the Carolina side of the ball, Bruce. You get the home opener. You're getting points in a division game. Usually that's a really nice spot to be in, but this is a tough foe. But Carolina's offense never got on track last week against Tampa Bay. How much was that of their own doing? How much of it was what the Bucs did to them?
There's a little bit of both, but alarming either way last week for Carolina because they did not balance the offense out. They went away from D'Angelo Williams very early. It was just in Cam Newton's hand, the ball in Cam Newton's hand almost every play. And we saw Tampa Bay clog his escape routes last week, kept him hemmed up in the pocket. Carolina was completely imbalanced in that game. That is not a recipe for Carolina to advance this year, no matter how much Cam Newton can do. He's not Superman. They need to balance this thing out a little bit better. They did not do that in the opener.
Yeah, sophomore year, teams have some film on Cam Newton. They know some tendencies now. Jonathan Stewart was out last week with an ankle injury, doubtful this week. Check the injury reports on him. They need to get the running game going to open it up. And you see these teams that throw the ball well. RG3 had a great week because they ran the ball 45 times as well. Washington was able to do whatever they wanted to against the Saints.
We're looking at the total. It's the highest one that's out there at 51. The one thing I would say, though, if Carolina showed up with anything resembling what they did last year, Kenny, this is a total would have been in the 54-55 range, right?
Well, last year's total, game one was 51, and it came 30-27 at the end of the year when Carolina kind of gave up. Total was 55, landed 62.
All right, it's a NFC South showdown. New Orleans on the road, a 2.5-point favorite. Total on the game is 51. One final footnote, Kenny. Do we see threes?
Good question. You may see some threes on the game, but three, you're going to 3 even money, 3 plus a nickel maybe.
Great information from Bruce Marshall and Kenny White. I'm Brian Blessing, and there's great information on the odds screen here at DonBest.com.